Hey, this is Mazzy, and this is really special for me because I am hanging out with Melinda Murphy, all the way in Kentucky, and I'm on the West Coast in Seattle. And we're going to showcase this is an idea that I've been wanting to do a collaboration with Melinda. We started around the same time, maybe a little over 3 years ago, and we've been wanting to do a collaboration. And I thought with what's just where we are in the world right now, just positive vibes, good vibes, records that make us feel good for one reason or another, and we'll jump into why. They might not all be shiny, happy people music, but for whatever reason, they, we feel it and we pull those records off the shelf. So welcome, Melinda. Why don't you tell a little bit about your channel? This is on both our channels, so some of you, probably most of you know us both, but if not, I want Melinda to introduce herself as well.
Yes, hi, I'm Melinda Murphy, and I love doing music videos. I'm a huge vinyl fan, and I'm going to be showing some of the records that really are uplifting to me, records that at the end of the day, if I've had a bad day, I'm going to pick up. And I kind of took this in two different ways. I thought about this video, 10 records. For one, okay, I kind of put myself in the scenario. If it's Friday, it's 5 o'clock, the next week I'm on vacation in my favorite location, what record just really rises to that occasion? So that's one thing I thought of. And then another one is when everything's going wrong in the world, you've had a really bad day, what records kind of bring you up and put you back into the place you need to be. So I took 10 records that really put me in that area. So that's where I'm coming from. So
great. I think there's going to be some, maybe not overlap in terms of titles, maybe, but in why they make us feel that way. And we'll get on it. We'll start right now. And Melinda's going to go first.
Okay, so the first record I wanted to show is the Go-Go's. This is Beauty and the Beat. And it is a fabulous record. I have always been a huge fan of the Go-Go's. This came out in 1981, right in my teenage years. And I'm not going to lie, I remember like when I was younger, when We Got the Beat, I had it on a compilation album or something like that. I can just remember being in my bedroom, privacy, nobody around. I would kind of have the We Got the Beat. I was pretending to be, I was Melinda as Belinda. So
Belinda, that's great. I love that.
And my favorite song on this album actually is Our Lips Are Sealed. And I loved that one. I kind of loved the Belinda, and I think it's Jane, kind of going back and forth on the lyrics on that one. This is just a really cool girl power type of album that I really enjoy. And there's a couple of really interesting things about this album. For one, they took this photo shoot, and I think it's so cool. I can remember, you know, you put the mask on your face and you've had your bath and you're wearing your towel. I can relate to that as a female. And they took these towels, they bought them all from Macy's the day of the photo shoot. They took the pictures and then they returned them to Macy's. So someone out there used these towels, and they're probably, instead of being in a Hard Rock Cafe where they belong, they're probably in a landfill somewhere. So I thought that was really cool. And then another part of this that I think, Mazzy, maybe you can agree on because you were there. Margot.
I was there. I was not in that room, in that locker room with those women.
No.
I swear.
The next story, you were there. Maybe you can say this really happened, because there's a story about Margot, Belinda, and Jane where they all went to the final concert of the Sex Pistols. That's where they met, so the story goes. And they decided to be a band and to go for being a band. So you were at that concert in San Francisco. Were you there? Can you confirm that?
I did not see three women in towels with their hair up at Winterland at the last Sex Pistols concert. I was there, and it was a terrible show. They were horrible. There was, I think, the Cramps punk band were on the bill, and I forgot. I used to know all that. Right now, I can't remember right now. The Tubes, maybe not. But it was great because it was amazing to be there to see the Sex Pistols. But of course, Johnny Rotten was rude to everyone, and Sid Vicious was drunk, and they weren't very good. I know there are bootlegs around, but I did not see the Go-Go's there. But so
They
I did
claim
not.
that's where they met. So something about that concert inspired them to become a band. So
Yeah,
anyway, a great record. And I think the music of it is very positive, uplifting, and I really enjoy that.
that's a great choice. Interesting thing about that. Yeah, since I work as a photo agent, I've been on a lot of photo shoots, and that reminded me when stylists, they buy wardrobe for the shoot, and they buy all these, different shirts and pants and dress, depending what or props and things, and then they have to return it. And then if you do things like at Macy's, you're supposed to buy at least 20%, and you can return the rest. There's like styling fees, things like that. But I wonder when like things like towel and undergarments are
I know.
usually not returned.
I wouldn't think
They
so.
keep them on set. That was a funny thing.
But
I
they were
went a little
on the
different.
IRS label, and they said but that was the label that if you couldn't get on any other label, you got on the IRS label. So maybe their budget was a little different.
Well, IRS was started by Miles Copeland, who was the brother of Stuart Copeland, the drummer in the Police, and that was his label, as I recall. And I think they were distributed, I think, by A&M Records. I could be wrong on that. Interesting thing about that album, I love that album too, and it is a really fun, upbeat album. There are two slightly, if you look in stores and used stores, the covers, there's two slightly color variations of that, not silhouette, what it was called, that gradation of the cover or something. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're
Was
not
one
here for really
blue and
pressing.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
One was blue, and I think one was peach. And I think
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about then. Okay, I'm going something. It's funny. I just realized the first few records that I'm picking are very moody, dirgy, sullen, which doesn't sound like upbeat things. But I find when you're in a certain mood, sometimes an album that is seemingly sad and depressing makes me feel good if I'm going through something. And I'm going to show Nick Cave's, one of my favorite albums this is my favorite album of Nick Cave, Boatman's Call. And then this one, only I'm showing these as a twofer because this one came out during lockdown. He did a live, maybe it wasn't live, pre-tape, but a pay-per-view concert alone at the Alexandra Palace in London, just piano playing. Almost, I want to say it's not a hits album of him solo piano, but it's so beautiful. It's so dark. And ironically, and just a coincidence to this, I saw him last night perform live. My first concert since the lockdown in 2 years at the Paramount Theater here in Seattle. And it was like a religious Christian revival. He sings about spirituality. He's not particularly religion, but he sings about Jesus and religion and God, and then also sex and death. But he has this sort of dirge-like emotional take. And when I hear these songs, it opens up with a song called "In My Arms," which he played second to last night on the piano. It's such a beautiful, moving song. And as we go on to these picks, I realize, and maybe it's the romantic in me, that I pick songs that were either during beginning or the end of a relationship, and you put on and you have these sense memories of things, which to me is very important in my life. I like your idea of something you put on to get away, to go on vacation. And I kept thinking when you said the Go-Go's, I thought you were going to pick their next album with the song Vacation, that really pop song. Anyway, so these two albums are just really beautifully personal albums to me, especially this one. And that's my first choice.
That's awesome. And I don't really know a lot about Nick Cave. I've heard you talk about Nick Cave, and I've heard so many, and yet I have still yet to discover his music.
Yeah, he's an Australian. He's Australian. Came out in the late '80s, sort of mid '80s, out of sort of a post-punk thing. And a lot of his earlier stuff is really up there, loud, punky, rock and roll. And all his albums, he has that mixture of it. He's done soundtracks. He's done offshoot things. But he's got this deep, rich voice that is just, it can hit you if you like the style. So check it out.
I'm glad you got to finally go to a concert again. I'm looking forward to getting to go to concerts again too.
I'm going to see Paul McCartney actually in May. So
And I'm so jealous. He's not coming anywhere near me, or I would definitely go see him again. I don't care. Everybody can complain, thinks he needs to retire. I disagree because I'm just now at a point in life where am able to afford to go see him. You know, I wasn't able to see him in the 70s or in, you know, just when his voice was perfect. So I want to take what I can get at this point. And I would love to go be able to see him again.
His concerts are amazing. I did see him 3 years ago in Vancouver, British Columbia, and the high end of his voice is, you know, doesn't quite make it. But so when he does something like Yesterday, it's a little questionable, but everything else, and the band is so tight. I mean, he's been with this band longer than he was with the Beatles now at this point. So really interesting.
Yeah, he's really good. And I honestly, when I see the performances on YouTube versus what I witnessed in person, it's like a totally different story. I feel like I think he's really great in person. I don't want to go back and revisit it on YouTube. So, okay, so my next choice, I'm going to show 2 albums. I'm cheating a little further than you are because I'm showing 2 artists.
I like it. I think the vinyl community world needs to see Melinda Murphy cheat once in a while.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, dirty myself up, dirty my reputation. So, but they're basically kind of the same type of records. And this is where I've had a bad day. A lot of things are going wrong, and I just need something to soothe me. I need to be sitting on my couch with a nice little bourbon, or I've had a bad day. These are 2 records that I think are fantastic. So Willie Nelson, Stardust. Love this record. I think it's so beautiful. I love his voice. I think he's incredible. And it's just a really good, soothing record. He sings standards like Stardust, and Someone to Watch Over Me is a highlight. I love that. So that's one of them. And the other one is one that I knew about because I watched your channel. And I remember you showing this record and you said, this isn't for everybody, but it was for me.
I think I say that a lot.
And this is Triplicate by Bob Dylan. And it is Bob Dylan singing the standards. And I don't care what anybody says, including my own husband. I think his voice sounds like an aged bourbon in this. And it's
good for you. Good for you. Scored points here. Good for you. And it's recorded at Capitol Hollywood Studios in the great tower, Capitol Tower. And it's beautifully recorded.
It is. It's a beautiful recording. It sounds as good as any audiophile record can. Beautifully packaged. It's Bob Dylan, his aged voice, singing older songs, which I think really fits. And I love it. The packaging is so amazing.
That's the limited packaging. That's the nice one. I have that one.
I wanted to get that one. You know, it's numbered. And I think my favorite song on the whole thing is September of My Years. I love that song. And I'm not in probably the September of My Years, so maybe I can listen to it really in a good mood. But I don't know, these Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan, them singing the standards, it's just a very soothing, uplifting kind of experience for me. And I really love these records. And I agree, my husband, he doesn't like Bob Dylan's voice, I don't think on any record, but I like Bob Dylan. I'm a huge fan. And I think this aged voice with these standards is great. I really like it.
Good for you. That's a surprising choice. The Willie Nelson to me is an obvious one for you, and I love that. Such a beautiful record, classic record. But that Dylan selection was out of the box, which I love that. I think when we talked about this ahead of time, I said sometimes let's think out of the box a little bit, not the obvious. And I love that one. I'm going with the old young Maslov romantic again. When I was young. 20 years old. My girlfriend was 17 years old. I don't know how that in California or Kentucky, if that's legal or not. And what a great young romance that was. I won't mention her name. It doesn't matter. And we had a song. You know, you always have a song with someone. It organically happens. And the song is Slow Dancer by Boz Scaggs from this album. Now, this is the original cover, the original album photographed by Ang Lee, but it's terrible cover. the album subsequent after this was Silk Degrees, the one that broke him, that was huge. They go back and they changed the cover and they put this on. And this was from a poster. He did a black tie optional show with tux and tails, which is very rare in the 70s, 1974 at the Paramount Theater. Big old West Coast, beautiful deco movie palace where all the audience, this is in the 70s, had to dress up in tie and tails, and it was so wonderful. But this album is soulful. It's produced by Johnny Bristol, who worked a lot with Philly International, a lot of these soul albums of the 70s. It's got a funk to it. But the song Slow Dancer is a beautiful romantic ballad. And I just remember, I don't know how many times Catherine and I would write that song. You're young and in love. Angel Lady, I believe there's some songs that are Alan Toussaint, so it's got a little New Orleans feel to it, but it's a really good, little schmaltzy with the string, but it's that 70s string soul sound, which is just really beautiful. And to this day, if I want to hark back, a lot of this, I realize a lot of the records I chose are this thing, like in the theater, they call it sense memory. When you're trying to study or learn a part, you go back to have this memory of when someone in your family died or something that made you feel good, and you use that in the scene you're working on in the moment. And this record, every time I play it, I think about being 20 years old, working in a record store, going to San Francisco State University, having this wonderful girlfriend, driving around my car in the Bay Area, just at a time where it was just really a wonderful time. So that's and to this day, it makes me feel good, this album. And it is very uplifting. The soul songs are upbeat. You could like dance to them a little bit. It's not disco at all, but it's that mid 70s soul thing. And I like this album actually better than Silk Degrees. Silk Degrees has probably more hooks, but I think this for me is a better album.
Yeah, I have Silk Degrees and I like that one. And in where I live, 20 to 17, totally acceptable. When I was a freshman in high school, my first boyfriend was a senior. So that's about the same age difference. So
actually, I met her, she was 16, I was 19. So it's still 3 years, but that's when we but I mean, we're not talking Jerry Lee Lewis age difference. And
exactly. No, not at all. Okay. So this next record I'm going to show, now some of these are going to be way out there and different, but if you've watched my channel long enough, this is someone who's very important to me. This is a compilation album, The Best of Tommy James and the Shondells. And I would just say that this album helped me heal. My parents divorced when I was 4. My dad stayed in my life. He was really never what I would call a true dad, not in the true sense. He would still come see me on holidays, things like that, but he never really stayed a consistent part of my life. I say you're not a dad if you haven't seen me when I've had the flu or a broken heart, and he wasn't around for that. But the Tommy James album, after my mom and dad, he left when I was 4, I would go into the living room and listen to a lot of albums, but this one was one that I think is really uplifting. And it has really cool songs in here. Ball of Fire, Crystal Blue Persuasion was a fantastic one. Crimson and Clover, everybody knows that from Tommy James and Joan Jett. Moni Moni, I like Tommy James' version better than the Billy Idol version. Sweet Cherry Wine, Hanky Panky. This is just a really uplifting, fun album. Doesn't bring a lot of heartache, if you listen to it. It's just fun and uplifting. And as a little kid, it was just what I needed at the right time. So
I love that. I have that comp. My baby does the hanky panky.
yes.
What a great, it's fun music. It's fun music. Yeah,
Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think apparently the story goes, I was reading some liner notes on a CD package I got of that. The Mafia really owned his career and ran his career. It's a scary story about the music business.
I really need to read his autobiography. I think it would be very interesting. And I've heard a little bit about that. And I would just love to hear his whole story. So eventually I'm going to read his autobiography. So.
Well, not only is this one of the to me, one of the most beautiful albums in my collection. It's one of the best sounding. I know this is not a video on Mo-Fi or best sounding and audiophile, but you and I occasionally obviously put those in our videos. But again, I realized the first few records are very moody, and I like that instead of upbeat go-go's stuff, but which I do like. I'm going with this album by Beck, and Sea Change. This and Morning Phase are almost like a couplet of albums, and this is his breakup album actually. And so I don't know if I coincidentally or on purpose or subconsciously put this right after the Boz Scaggs, because that was one of the early times in my life I actually got dumped from that relationship. However, this is where longevity. Catherine is still one of my closest best friends. Awesome. I've been to both her weddings. When I go to San Francisco, I stay at her house. We're like true friends. We've been friends now for 50 years, which is kind of scary. Or I think 50 years this year, actually. God, no, next year. This is a beautiful album. This is the double 45. Really hard to get now. Unfortunately, they need to put it out. But do you have this one as well?
I have that album, but I don't have the mobile fidelity version. That's probably over $300 to $400.
Yeah, I didn't buy it. I bought it as it came out. I mean, this needs to come out again. I don't think it's available on any format or any vinyl format at the moment. But it's such a beautiful album. Again, it is his breakup album. It's very moody. It's very influenced. Some of the arrangements are from the French composer Serge Gainsbourg. Has these kind of French pop things, but it's just a beautiful record, and it's a favorite album of mine. It might even be in a top 25 if I couldn't do all the Beatle records and everything. Just one per artist. This would probably be my top 25 albums of all time.
I agree. I think that's a beautiful record. I've just recently added it to my collection. I got it a few months ago, but I happened to be at a place where it had been there and just sitting there for a very long time.
Wow.
It's not a mobile fidelity version, but it's one that just it still sounds good. It's probably not as good as yours, but I picked it up because I know it's out of print right now. So I went ahead and got it. I think it's a great record. So yeah, I agree. Okay, so the next record I'm going to show is one that, first off, I was thinking about going with Madonna's Like a Virgin, because I have really good memories. Like a version, not
like a version, like a version of a virgin.
Right. I remember being a freshman in high school. I had tried out to make cheerleader for a couple of years, never made it, finally made it my freshman year of high school. And I would get on the fan bus as a cheerleader, and immediately the song Like a Virgin was a huge, huge hit. And so part of my brain went, oh, this song's so inappropriate. The next part of my brain went, but it's so cool. I really like it. And I wanted to go with that one, but there's some little bit of some sad songs on that album. I decided this one I think is much more uplifting, and this is the Immaculate Collection by Madonna. And it's because it just adds so many upbeat, positive songs. You get Like a Virgin, but you also get Holiday and Lucky Star. And also a lot of the later songs like Vogue and Express Yourself, and a really sexy song called Just to Find My Love is on here.
Oh, yeah.
I like that one too. And I think everybody should have Madonna's Immaculate Collection. I think Madonna is a beautiful woman. I'll probably say this a little controversial. I wish she would just let herself age gracefully, because I think she's very beautiful. I just
that's the problem with Hollywood and the music business for not just Madonna, which is unfortunate. I agree with you on that, definitely.
She was a beautiful woman. And just a little bit of a backstory on Madonna for me. When she was filming the movie A League of Their Own, parts of that movie was filmed in the area where I was growing up. And there was a dance club where they were having a Madonna lookalike contest. And at that point in my life, I guess I had a similar haircut to Madonna. On a daily basis, people said, you look just like Madonna. And I did not enter that contest because I don't like to draw attention to myself. I wasn't someone who wanted to get on stage, but I went to that dance club the night after the Madonna lookalike contest, and the owner and all of the employees like, where were you last night? You would have won. I like Madonna, and I like this music. I really love the upbeat influence she had. And so
I do too. I'm a big supporter of hers. I know she's been controversial over the years, and I think she's amazing. It's Like a Prayer on that album, because I love. I have a C. I think I have that only on CD. That particular album. I just love that. I remember it was controversial when that video came out because all those crosses burned.
You're right. It was controversial. I wasn't at a point in my life where I was watching a lot of music videos, so I didn't really catch on that controversy. But yeah, she's always been someone who thrived on controversy, and I get it. It's helped her stay in the limelight. But I also think the music speaks for itself, and I think she's just a tremendous artist. I think she can just age well, let the music speak for her. I just think she's a tremendous person who doesn't need to have airbrushed photos. She doesn't need to change her looks, and the music speaks for itself. And she was always an uplifting person, you know. But yeah, I agree. The controversy helped her a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of it was self-created, but I agree with the aging thing and all that. And I'm surprised that you said you didn't want to attract attention to yourself, yet you have this YouTube channel, which you're on the way to 20,000 subscribers.
It's so weird. It's
changed.
not like me. I agree. I'm not someone to want to be in the spotlight. So this is very unusual. And
well, you are now, Melinda Murphy. Click below to both our channels, whichever one you subscribe. Push that subscribe, heart button, bell, all those things.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I get a little out there, not even out there, but I'm sticking with that emotional late night, you know, drink a bourbon, have a martini, and just cry yourself to sleep after you get dumped. I bet you someone out there just broke up with someone, so they'll feel. This is a beautiful album. Chet Baker sings, and this is one of the Tone Poets, and for some reason, because of the backup of pressing plants, it's hard to get right now. I happen to be a huge fan of Chet Baker's voice. He doesn't sing on all his records. He's got this almost female, but low, but really slow, moody, whispery voice. And he's a jazz trumpet player, was on Pacific Records, Pacific Recording, and Pacific Jazz. And half of the, or not half, but a selection of the Tone Poet reissues are from this label, Pacific Jazz, not just Blue Note. Wonderful recording, moody, a lot of standards like That Old Feeling and Time After Time, and not the Time After Time by, not the, what's her name? Time After Time. Yeah, not that one. But there's a lot of standards like Someone to Love. It's the old songbook type of stuff. It is such a beautiful record. This version, when it gets repressed again, if anyone out there doesn't have it, snap it up, because again, it's one of the best sounding records on my table, and I put it on. It's like a Saturday night, Sunday morning record, I think, but it makes you feel kind of, if you're lonely, it makes you feel lonelier, but in a good way. It'll be like your friend. And I dwell on that. I don't know if it's in my DNA, my religion, whatever it is. If I'm feeling down, I like to really feel it, not just sugarcoat it. Although when I'm in that other mode, and there'll be some more records later on, I'm like that. But anyway, Chet Baker sings, a Tone Poet. Check it out.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful record. I don't have that one yet. It's one that I will buy when it is out. I'm not going to pay the fee that costs to put on Discogs. But when
it'll be back. It'll be back.
Yeah, I will buy that one when it comes out. I have some Chet Baker, but I don't have any of his singing albums. I have him, you know, but I don't have the singing albums. But I agree, it's and I'm kind of like you. Like, I've been married since 1994. I met my husband in 93. We dated for 7 months. We got engaged. 5 months later, we were married, and we've been married ever since. So it's been a long time since I've had my heart broken. But I remember being you know, when I wanted to feel it, I would feel it. I would listen to Dolly Parton's I Would Always Love You, or just some painful songs, because I did want to feel that feeling. So I understand what you're saying when it comes to breakups. It's just been a long time since I've had my heart broken by a
Well,
man.
me too, but it's just in general, and I'll get into it some in the next couple, in the next few, a little bit about things that have manipulated, or not manipulated, I felt. But we might have to change this to the Melinda and Mazzy therapy section video.
Yeah. So I think when you want to feel the depth of despair, take some of Mazzy's recommendations. When you want to kick that to the curb and maybe go up a notch, maybe some of my records, kind of mix them up a little bit, because I think they're all great and they're all important. Then they all bring out feelings. And
I'm gonna really depress your audience base there. So.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll see. All right. So the next one I'm going to show is The Sidewinder by Lee Morgan.
Good
I
choice.
think this is a really cool, uplifting jazz record. It's catchy, and immediately you just fall in love. It's just a great record. And I think for Blue Note, it actually pulled them out of a funk, because from what I read, this album did so well. They were on the verge of bankruptcy, and this one took them out of that. So for them, they probably were very happy when this record came out. We've got great musicians on here. Of course, Lee Morgan is the star of the show on trumpet, Joe Henderson on tenor sax, Barry Harris on piano, Bob Crenshaw on bass, and Billy Higgins on drums. And I just think it's a happy, feel-good kind of jazz album. You can get jazz albums that will tear your heart out. And I personally love beautiful piano music like Bill Evans or Red Garland. I love Red Garland. But this one is what I think is an uplifting, happy type of album. And I'm so glad that Blue Note has reissued. I do have an original of this, but this one is cleaner and it just sounds so good. And I'm so glad that Blue Note's putting these classics back out there.
That is such a great uplifting album. Yeah, that was a huge hit for Blue Note. I mean, you don't think of jazz records as hits, but around that time, like obviously Nat King Cole, it's a little different because he got in a pop jazz thing, but that was very catchy. And it's a great party record too. If you have people over at a dinner party or whatever, not really up dancing, but you could, it's that good. I agree. Okay, I'm changing course a little bit. Those of you who watch my channel know I'm a native San Franciscan, and 8 years ago I moved after an entire life to Seattle. And there's a segment of my videos that I've done, so about 15 so far, and I haven't done one in a while, called Memories of a Vinyl Junkie, where I pick a year of growing up. And I'm very sentimental about San Francisco, and I grew up at a perfect time, perfect place for me. And I was able to see all this great music in the I'm a generation older than Melinda. So late 60s into all through the 70s into the 80s. And I've done these videos on psychedelia and the San Francisco sound. And I was born in just the edge of the Haight-Ashbury and by Golden Gate Park, overlooking Golden Gate Park at a hospital. And it means so much to me. And not that I'm not there now. So, but that memory is still strong for me. So I'm showing Jefferson Airplane's Realistic Pillow because I was trying to think. I had to pick one album of the 60s bands like the Grateful Dead, Quicksilver, Country Joe and the Fish, that whole, Creedence in a way, who's from the East Bay, but that San Francisco sound. And the one that really, to me, is it the best? Who knows? It was obviously the most popular, 1967, because of White Rabbit and Somebody to Love that Grace Slick brought from the band she was in, the Great Society. This was huge all over the radio. And then, of course, all the record companies swarmed to San Francisco to sign any band with a pulse, playing the Avalon, the Fillmore, and all that. But this is such a great record. Some of it's very upbeat with She Has Funny Cars, Somebody to Love, but also My Best Friend and Today by Marty Ballin are just sort of beautiful. I'm just showing this because this album was recorded in LA at a time. I mean, it's a good sounding album. It's not unaudiophile by any stretch, and there's a lot of reverb on it, but it was recorded in Hollywood, and a lot of the engineers of that day didn't really know how to record rock and roll, and especially this kind of rock and roll. I think Jerry Garcia went down and kind of tried to lend his hand, giving them advice. So even though it sounds great, it's not audiophile, which it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be. We like music for music, and that's what this video is about. However, this is a double 45 mono version, and 45 RPM double album is a pain because you got to turn it over faster, 2 to 3 tracks aside. But this is the best this album has ever sound, and I have probably 4 or 5 versions of this album. So this really brings back, it makes me feel what I loved about growing up in San Francisco. It just makes me feel really good. And plus it's a great record. So Jefferson Airplane, Twisted Pillow, some consider the 3 great summer albums of 1967 were Twisted Pillow, the first Doors album, and Sgt. Pepper. I mean, you got to throw Jimi Hendrix in there too, probably, but those are the 3 when you think of the summer of love that people kind of discuss.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent choice, Mazzy. I love that album, and I love Marty Ballin's voice. I think there's something about his voice. He's almost off key, and yet it's perfectly beautiful and it works. And I love his voice. And then Grace Slick and her vocal performance on White Rabbit is unbelievable. So I don't have the Mobile Fidelity record. I have an original, but if the Mobile Fidelity version ever comes up for sale again and I can grab it, I'm going to get it because I think that's such a great record. And I really think Grace Slick, when we talk about wonderful female vocalists, she probably doesn't come up as much as she should. And again, I'm a huge Marty Ballin fan. Even his solo work, I think, is really good. So that's a great choice. I love that album, and I love that. So I'm going to be switching to something else, and this is a really cool. Most people would consider a classic 70s band, but like you said just before, we grew up in different eras. And for me, I love the really, really old Aerosmith stuff, but what I can relate to from when I was a teenager and maybe just a few years older was when they came back full force in the 80s. And this album was huge. First off, I remember I actually danced I went to 2 proms my senior year. The song Angel by Aerosmith, I danced at my senior prom to that song. But this is one of those pedal to the metal albums, Aerosmith Pump. I know a lot of people, if they love the 70s Aerosmith, don't really get into this newer 80s version, but I think it's fantastic and I really love it. And the first side is perfect. Young Lust, fine. I'm kind of over Lovin' an Elevator. That song's just okay to me. But Monkey on My Back and Janie's Got a Gun is terrific. And I just think this is so fantastic. The drummer is underrated. I love Steven Tyler's, the way he delivers the vocals is so good. Of course, Joe Perry's fantastic. It's just a really happy, feel good kind of album. But now, a lot of times when you're in a bad relationship and it ends, sometimes you do want to dwell into those really sad songs that make you feel a lot. And then there's other songs that you want to maybe put down the other person. It makes you feel better when you think, oh, there goes my old girlfriend. There's another diamond ring, and all of those promises don't mean a thing. So what it takes. Sometimes you need to hear a song like that to make yourself feel better by putting down the other person. And
so what's the etiquette? What's the etiquette about giving a diamond ring back? If the guy breaks up, you keep it. If you break up, you give it back. Is there etiquette there? I don't even know.
I would have given it back no matter what. That's just who I am. But yes, that is the proper etiquette. If they
okay, I'll remember that. I don't
keep the ring, but no, I would have to give it back because it no longer means anything once they move on. So
except at a pawn shop during the Depression, right?
Now maybe instead of giving it to the guy, you just take it to the pawn shop. I don't know, but
so that Aerosmith record, is that, do you know, is that before or after their resurgence with Walk This Way with Run DMC?
They went on to do, they did the Walk This Way with Run DMC. Then they did Permanent Vacation that had the song Angel on it. And then a little bit later, I think I was in college, my first year of college, when Pump came out. And I love it. I think it's such a great record. And a lot of Aerosmith purists really don't care for anything they did after the 70s. But as someone who has memories from the 80s and the Aerosmith music that came out in the 80s, I really like it. So, teach their own.
Great, great. Okay, I'm going now into a different genre. I'm going with country rock. And I don't think, like, how does country rock make you feel good? Well, of course, there's an answer for that. I'm sure you have country records that make you feel, oh, you had Willie Nelson, of course, already. But in the last 8 years, unfortunately, 3 of my really close friends have passed away. And they were all 3 friends that were one I grew up with, but the other 2 I met early on. Like, I knew them for 48 to 50 years, literally, when I first started working in record stores. And so from the time I was 19, I grew up with them and we discovered music together. And one of the first guys that ever hired me at a record store, his name was Vernon. He was from Richmond, Virginia. And he came to San Francisco and he hired me. And I think he's like 2 to 3 years older than me. And during the interview, he said, well, I almost thought he wasn't going to hire me, but then I said, I like country rock. And he goes, who? I said, the Byrds. And then I said, the Flying Burrito Brothers. And I mentioned Graham Parsons. And this record, Grievous Angel, means a lot to me. And I did a video when Vernon died about the year before COVID lockdown. He was sick the last couple of years and he passed away. I did a video and I started out with the song Grievous Angel. And to me, that song was such an inspiring, beautiful, heartfelt song of the harmonies of Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris. This whole album is beautiful. Brass Buttons, Hickory Wind, Love Hurts. This to me is a perfect album from start to finish. And in a way, this represents of all 3 of my friends, even though this is the connection with Vernon. My friend Coleman, who you've heard of, who died last year. My friend Larry, who was a drummer in a band I grew up with. This kind of represents that connection of loss of friends, and that's one of the scariest things of as you age. And I'm, knock on wood, really healthy for my age, and for the most part, aside from a slight hair loss problem there, I'm pretty good. But this album represents those friends I've lost. And it tugs at me. It's a beautiful record. It's not a down record at all. It's lively. And it came out, unfortunately, posthumously just after Graham Parsons died. It was recorded and finished, but it didn't come out till after. So that also adds the whole California thing with, his road manager, stealing his coffin and burning it at Joshua Tree. It was some weird pact they both had. So it's just this kind of weird, beautiful, dark, but you kind of get it in a strange way, story of this friendship and this love. And the guy he could have got arrested and thrown in jail, which he kind of did, but then it was later thrown out, or I think Graham's father didn't press charges. But just a beautiful, beautiful country rock record, and a record, if anyone likes country, forget the Eagles records, go with this. This is the real deal as far as I'm concerned. And I do like some of the Eagles, but there we go.
I love that one too. That one is a fantastic one. And I did watch videos where I remember the record store owner you're talking about. I remember when you just basically dropped your life and went back to San Francisco to be by his bedside as he passed away. So
that was Coleman. That was well, both of them actually, which is
right,
kind of sad. A year apart, a little over a year apart. Yeah,
so that's really tough, and that is part of growing older, is you also have to say goodbye to other people, and that's one of the hard things about it. So, and I think that is a beautiful record. I bought that one last year. I'd been looking for it for a long time, and I found a beautiful copy. And I love Graham Parsons. The story, like you said, at the Joshua Tree and everything like that, it's really crazy. I would say if you want to make a great record, put Emmylou Harris on it, and you're going to have a great record.
He basically kind of discovered her. She's out of Washington, D.C. Who thought? She's from D.C., right? She's a northern, and she is just a golden voice for me. I just love it. Yeah.
She was fantastic. So now I'm going to show a record. And honestly, I had something else in mind, but when I thought about this record, I immediately knew had to replace one of the others for this. This one is a Rolling Stones record that not everybody loves or gets. And I'm glad they didn't stay in this type of mood, but I really love it. I think it's a lot of fun. And as you see the cover, this is their Satanic Majesty's Request. This is their psychedelic record. Fantastic. And of course, obviously, when you look at it, you think, yeah, they're kind of following the Beatles on this one, but the music doesn't. I love Sgt. Pepper, but I think this goes a different musical route when it comes to psychedelic music, and I really love it. Uplifting songs on here. I love seeing this all together. 2000 Man is incredible. She's a Rainbow. Of course, everybody knows that one. That one's very famous now. 2000 Light Years from Home. The album cover is so much fun. And it's just, I think, a great record. And even though the Rolling Stones, this is kind of a one-off for them, something very unusual, it's in one of my highlights of the Rolling Stones. And I really love a lot of the Rolling Stones records, but I think it's a lot of fun. And it's just very uplifting and happy. A lot of the music's just so happy on it. So I love that.
I absolutely love that record. And a lot of Stones purists, the real deep, dark, that whole Beatles versus Stones, which is kind of ridiculous, but they don't like that record. Like even Marianne Faithfull says, the Stones just don't do psychedelic well, but I think that they do it really well. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't sound like the Beatles. Yeah, they used the same photographer, Sgt. Pepper, different designer, and it came out like 4 months, 5 months after, 6 months after Sgt. Pepper, whatever. So there's that. This is 1967. It's really a good sounding Rolling Stones record, I think. Yeah,
it's a great one. I don't know the exact quote, but I remember John Lennon saying, they put out the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper. The next thing you know, he's wearing his little hat here, and they went. It seemed like they were following trends, but I think the Rolling Stones were following their own musical trends. Maybe they wanted to get into psychedelia, but they did it their own way. And I really like that record. I think it's a lot.
Yeah, I think Brian Jones probably pushed him a little more, that he was really into that, but still, I think Keith Richards thinks it's kind of crap, but I love it. I love it. It's better than a lot of their later albums, that's for sure. But it's in my top 5 Stones albums too. So I'm going with something just really upbeat. And this is Ella in Berlin, Ella Fitzgerald. And to me, one of the best female women vocalists ever. I remember one night when I was working in record stores in the 70s, I was driving home late through Golden Gate Park, and the radio was playing the last 2 cuts. It's live in Berlin of her version of Mac the Knife and How High the Moon. And she does a scatting on that. It's upbeat with the orchestra backing her up. And as much as I like her studio records and the songbooks, I think she shines when she's doing a live gig and a live song. And this is an album, if anyone likes jazz vocals or Ella Fitzgerald, this has to be in your collection. And you can find this cheap. I think there are, I don't even know if they're audiophile versions, but it doesn't really matter. Find it cheap until you find one that sounds good, that's not beat up on Verve. But I heard that, and the next day I went to the store I was working in and grabbed a copy. I'd never heard it before. It's like the Lady is a Tramp, Summertime, Too Darn Hot, Misty, all those songs that you're talking about, like probably, I don't know if they're on that Dylan album, Triplicate, or Sinatra would sing, but the power, she goes on, this How High the Moon goes on for, I don't know, 5-6 minutes. And there's a scatting thing that goes on for several minutes. And it's awesome. And it's uplifting and it makes you feel good. And it's a brilliant record.
Yeah, I agree. Ella Fitzgerald, someone that puts a smile on my face. My daughter, she's an old soul and she loves Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald. She's just a huge fan. So I do have several records. I haven't seen Mac the Knife, but I do have several Ella records. I see them when I can find them. They're usually not very expensive. And I say get them for your collection because they're really good. And she was a really tremendous artist. So
yeah, pick that up. It's cheap usually, and listen to the last 2 tracks. They merge together. She kind of morphs into from Mac the Knife to How High the Moon, and it's a stunning recording. 1960, I think.
If I ever find that record, I'll pick it up because I would love to hear that. This next record is one that was huge when I was a freshman in high school, or maybe the summer before that. I was in marching band. I actually played a tenor saxophone. I wasn't bad at it. I wasn't John Coltrane good, but I wasn't bad. It was a natural. I went from a clarinet, and our band director said, "You need to go into tenor saxophone. I think you would do very well." And it was a natural flow for me. So anyway, I have really great memories of hearing this back at that area. It was a very special time for me. Summer before my freshman year, and then all through my freshman year. Purple Rain by
yeah, good choice.
Great stuff. And if you want to know why Prince is in my top 5 of my favorite guitarists, listen to this. The opening riff of When Doves Cry. I don't know what he's doing there, but it's unbelievable. It's so good. Let's Go Crazy. There's just great stuff on here. When Doves Cry, The Beautiful Ones, Take Me With You is so much fun. And back in the 80s, when I was in high school, there was a Jane Fonda workout that all of us guys was doing. Now
you had the video then, probably.
I had the video. I did it every day after work, or after school, I mean, because I was still in high school. Our history teacher told me, do not watch that lady. He didn't like her. I was too young to really understand the history about Jane Fonda, and I didn't care. I just knew she was giving me thinner thighs and a better body. So I got to the point where I knew that workout so well that even after doing her workout, I would sometimes put this record on and do her workout to this music. And I had so much fun with it. And I love Prince. I love everything about him. And I don't even know if this is my favorite album by him, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And even after the workout at the end, the song was Purple Rain. That's kind of when I would do my cool down of the Jane Fonda workout. And even it wasn't like a sad, put you in a bad mood. It's very reflective and beautiful. So I love this one. And great memories. We had the poster that came in this album on our wall. I had to share a room with my sister. She won this album. When I was a freshman, the very first high school dance that I went to when I was a freshman. For some reason, they had some kind of raffle. She won this album. So that's how we had this record in our hands, and we played it all the time. So I love Prince, and I do think he not only was a great songwriter, vocalist, but man, could he play that guitar. He was great.
Oh God, you probably have seen the While My Guitar Gently Weeps from the Harrison or from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that solo. So over the top. That is a great album, upbeat, fun record. I like it a lot. I think my favorite is Sign of the Times, the double one, but that's a great period. So, and I'm going to stick with a solo artist too. And I think this is his masterpiece, although he did a lot of great. This guy had a string of like 5 amazing albums in a row, like around the same time Elton John was going and everything, but that's Stevie Wonder and
Yeah.
Songs in the Key of Life. And I mean, isn't she lovely? I was gonna, come on, Maslow. Sir Duke, Have a Little Talk with God, Love in Need of Love Today. I mean, this is a beautiful record. There's mood to it. There's social awareness. There's spirituality, and it's just a really feel good record. And I love this record. I love how it opens up with this string arrangements, that intro on this record, and it's just really well recorded. To me, it's a master. It's one of the great double albums, obviously, along with Exile and the Beatles' White Album and Allman Brothers Fillmore East. Maybe that's a live album though. But what a great record!
I agree. I love that one. Sir Duke is my favorite song by Stevie Wonder. It just brings me right back to the 70s when I was a really little kid. That was a huge hit, and I really love that one. Isn't she lovely?
It's fun and upbeat and jazzy, and yeah, it's great.
Agree.
Duke Ellington.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Now, the next record I'm going to show is one that if you watch my channel, you know I love it. Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies. I think it's a beautiful,
good choice.
Great stuff. The harmonies will put you in a fantastic mood. If you need an uplifting, put this one on. Care of Cell 44 immediately. Colin Bloomstone's incredible vocals. I think he's just so underrated as a vocalist. I am going to be seeing the Zombies in concert. You just went to a concert last night. Next month, I finally get to see the Zombies, and I can't wait. But of course, Time of the Season was the huge hit on this one, but I love A Rose for Emily. That's a beautiful song. Beechwood Park, so good on here. And I think the only downside to Odyssey and Oracle is I've been really trying hard to get an original first pressing of it, and I've just had bad luck. I've struck out. It seems like every time I think I'm going to find this record and be able to buy it, it doesn't work out for me. So, but I have enough copies of it that I can listen to it and enjoy it. I don't have to have a first pressing. I have a second pressing, but it doesn't have this beautiful album cover. I don't know why the second.
Oh, is that the one with the black frame around it? The second?
Yeah, why did they do that? Because
that was in the 70s. You know, there was a lot of, I don't want to say anything bad, but there was a lot of bad redesigns in the 70s of earlier records. And that is a great record. I don't have an original either. And I don't know, a lot of people don't know, they spelled Odyssey wrong on the cover when the guy wrote that whole thing. I have a reissue, plus I have the box set that I have autographed by all the living members of the box that in silver marker, right after they got in the Hall of Fame 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I guess during COVID, they had some free time, and on their website, they had this album autographed, and I bought it. And it's not a great sounding pressing of the record, but I didn't really buy it for the pressing. I bought it for the autographs.
Of course.
So now it's hanging on my wall. It is a treasure, and I love it. But this is one, I'd say this is in my top 3 albums of all time. So I love that.
And then I think, didn't they split up after that record, or even before it came out or something? I mean, that's so tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it wasn't a big hit. I mean, the song was a hit, but it wasn't really a hit. So,
right.
Okay, my next choice, if you want to say, look, I just want to feel good, I want to party, I just want everything upbeat, positive vibes, no drama, nothing bad. And I know there's some people out there, when I did a thing on this band, there's some people said, Maslov, I'm going to unsubscribe to you because you like them so much. And I saw them with my friend Coleman the only time they toured America in 1979. And I don't have to really say much about this, but I picked the first 10 years, ABBA, the singles.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Dancing Queen, yeah. Ring Ring, Waterloo, Fernando, Money Money Money, Name of the Game, Chiquita. Everything is perfect pop music, perfectly recorded, perfect vocals, upbeat, makes you smile. You cannot not smile listening to an ABBA record. So those of you who disagree with me, unsubscribe to my channel, subscribe to that's it. I don't agree, but anyway, that's all I gotta say.
I love ABBA, and they're uplifting. And when I was that little girl trying to get over my dad leaving us, because I was a daddy's girl, I heard Dancing Queen and danced to that a lot. But I will say there is a song by them that when I had this boyfriend when I was 13 or 14 years old, I thought I was madly in love. The Winner Takes It All, to me, is one of those heartbreaking, drags you, but yet you want to listen to it because you want to wallow in your pity a little bit. What a beautiful vocal for that song. And I really love ABBA for the uplifting stuff like what you're talking about. My mom had the 45 of Mamma Mia. We wore it out, my sister and I, as kids. And they are really just a great band. And I have great fond memories of them growing up. I listened.
And I could put on, if I was putting a lot of music on my videos, which I don't do, occasionally I do, I could close out everyone with "Thank you for the music," because that really just, I mean, that's why we're here. That's why people theoretically are watching us, about the music. We talk about pressings and artwork and everything else, but it's about the music ultimately. And, you know, screw all that audiophile crap those big channels do.
Well, I mean, I like my audiophile stuff too, but
I'm kidding.
Audiophile. And but now this next record I think sounds fantastic. It's not an audiophile record that I own. Some people probably do have an audiophile copy of it, and I would say you probably do. This is a fantastic record to me. Bags and Train. And this is Milton Jackson and John Coltrane. It's their nicknames. And I say you cannot be in a bad mood if you're listening to a vibraphonist. No way. You can't listen to that. It's so bubbly. It's so upbeat. There's no way you can be in a bad mood and listen to this album. It's so cool. And I just love it. My husband was trying to say it was a glockenspiel, but he's a vibraphonist.
Well, it's vibraphone, xylophone. There's good vibes. You know, I did a good vibe video where I showed like 5 or 6 vibraphone records or 10 vibraphone records once. I don't think anyone really it wasn't one of my most popular videos, but I love the sound of vibes. And Milt Jackson was in the Modern Jazz Quartet. I don't have an audiophile. I have one of the Atlantic reissues, which sounds really good. It's not. I don't know if there is an audiophile version of that. It doesn't matter. It's a good sounding record.
Yeah, mine came in a John Coltrane mono box, so I have.
That's what I got. That's the one I got. Yeah.
And it sounds fantastic. So it's audiophile as far as I'm concerned, and I really
Yep.
love it. And I'm supposed to be getting another Milt Jackson. There's a Blue Note reissue. I'm supposed to have it delivered today, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm a huge Milt Jackson fan, and I just think that it's one of those jazz records that can put you in a really good mood, very happy feeling. So
If you don't have it, and I always show this record because it was a second jazz album I ever got. I bought it because when I got my first stereo component system, they were playing it. It's called it's Stanley Turntine's Cherry with Milt Jackson. And it's on CTI Records. I think you can get it pretty cheap if you look. It's got these African-American hands on the cover, kind of a reddish tint cover, 1972. Opens up with a Lee Morgan song called Speedball, and it's really a good record. So check that out. Cherry on
thank you
CTI.
for the recommendation. Thank you. I always love getting jazz recommendations because I'm fairly new to the genre. So
Yeah, and it's an easy record. It's not because a lot of times it's hard to turn people onto something really out there. Although I've seen you're really getting some challenging jazz records, I think, it's great. If people go there, but they need to kind of dip their toes into different things first. So I'm going a completely different direction. I'm going with Beethoven. And this is a box. I used to have this box set.
yeah.
And this is the 9 symphonies by Herbert von Karajan out of Germany. This is recorded in, I think, 1960. I had this entire box set. And when I did my 95 purge, I got rid of it because I have a lot of classical records on CD. CD is really good for classical because there's, quiet parts. And if it's really noisy, it gets in the way. But I got this back again from the Coleman collection. This is my buddy's collection. We did these cards in it. But to me, the 9th Symphony, and nicknamed part of it the Ode to Joy, which is perfect for this video. It's such an uplifting thing. And this is where you get into music in surprisingly different ways. I got into Beethoven's 9th Symphony because of the Beatles movie Help. There's a scene with this tiger and Ringo, and he has to sing the Ode to Joy from Beethoven's 9th Symphony to calm the tiger down. And I just love it. And obviously it's been used over and over again from movies and Die Hard and Christmas movies, and some consider it a Christmas piece of music. But every time I put the 9th Symphony on, it just makes me feel really, really good. And I recently got a new amplifier for my stereo. And the first piece of classical music I put on, and I was alone in the house, and I just blasted it. And it sounded just pastoral and beautiful and gorgeous. So, there's so many variations and versions, and I think I have maybe 3 on CD and one other version. Maybe Leonard Bernstein, I forgot which version, on record. But I love this 1960. He did record these again in the 80s, I believe, digitally when CDs were big. But this is the one I prefer. And again, I'm not a classical maven that know everything, but I just love Beethoven's 9th Symphony. It's just a joyous piece of music.
I agree. That is an excellent choice. I'm glad we got some classical music represented here. I actually have that box set as well. It's fantastic. And I know we're not talking about values, but that's a fairly valuable record as well. When I've looked it up on Discogs, my husband picked it up at like a discount record store or something like that a long time ago. And when I went to put in Discogs, I was surprised at how valuable it was, but it's also just really beautiful. And I agree.
You can find classical box sets pretty cheap because a lot of people don't want them. I mean, a lot of classical people went into CDs for, obvious reasons. You kind of get it, but obviously there's a channel, Michael Poetry on Plastic, who's really into it, and it's turned me on to some stuff that I didn't know, and I really admire that, and I love that that's out there too. So
yeah, that's a beautiful box set. I agree. If you see that out there, it's usually not that expensive, but pick it up because it's definitely worthwhile. And if you look on Discogs, if you try to buy it from Discogs, it's worth a little money. But anyway, this is going to be the last record I show. This is number 10. And it wouldn't be me without showing, representing this band, especially when it comes to feel good, happy music. Van Halen, and this is Van Halen 2. Fantastic.
I think you and I are going to be in sync with our final choices in a yin yang way, if you know what I mean.
I think I know what you mean. I think I do, because this is such a great record. And of course, I say the first album is them being heavy and proving themselves as wonderful musicians, and the guitar's heavy. But I think this is more than any of them, their party album, because like a lot of the others, Fair Warning is a little darker. This is just fun, and it starts out with the wonderful song "You're No Good" by and also Linda Ronstadt also did a great version of that song.
Oh yeah, that's a great song.
Well, that's one of those that if you're at a heartbreak, that's the kind of song you probably need to rotate to, one that's kind of "You're No Good, Get Away," makes you feel better. But it also has beautiful songs on here like "Light Up the Sky," "Women in Love," "Beautiful Girls," makes you feel like you want to be on a beach, and happy stuff. And it's a great album. I love all of the Van Halen records. David Lee Roth era is my favorite. I think there was a magic there that went away after he left. Sammy did an excellent job being the next person up, and I give him props for that. But David Lee Roth and Van Halen, this is a fantastic record, and it just makes you feel good, happy, great stuff. So that is my 10th record.
Well, who do you think would be my 10th record?
I can't wait to see.
Melinda and I have a little bit of a sparring thing here, because I know her number one band of all time is Van Halen, and her number 2 band of all time is my number 1 band of all time. And of course, we're talking about the Fab Four, the Beatles. Now, I could have picked their entire catalog, pulled out the mono box, the stereo box. And what I pulled out, and again, this is Revolver is probably my favorite Beatles album, probably is. This is the UK version. But this is actually the American version. This is a stereo version, but the American version of Rubber Soul, which is not the way the Beatles intended it, but I would always argue that it might be a slightly better album than what the Beatles actually made. I know Heretic saying that. It's more of a country-ish folk acoustic record, somewhat geared that way. It doesn't have 14 tracks, it's 12. But the reason the Beatles for good vibes for me, because I remember, this is again my first memory of thinking about music in my life. I'm old enough to grow up when the Beatles hit on Ed Sullivan's show, and I was a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, and I grew up with them. So my entire teen years were with the Beatles until I was 16, and then they left. And so, but I remember always saying, no matter, I had a good childhood, but if I was down, if I was depressed, I'm an only child, if I was lonely, I would put the Beatles records on, and it always, without exception, made me feel good. It always, even brought back memories from 6 months earlier, a year earlier, or when the records came out. I have vivid memories of every time I bought a Beatles record, I acquired one. And again, I'm that generation that got them as they came out, not 10, 20, 40 years after the fact, which is not a better thing, but it's just, we were surprised each time with what they were doing. And it's remarkable that in literally 7.5 years or so, they did all those records in 7.5, 8 years, maybe. So I picked these two as my closing argument here, and they just make me feel good, right? Don't the Beatles
Yeah.
make you feel good?
I agree. Those are beautiful. And I'm with you on most of the time. I would say the UK track listings were better, but I do love on Rubber Soul opening with I Just Saw a Face. I love, or I mean the US pressing of, and it starts out with I Just Saw a Face.
I'm going to
opening
say
right
I'm going
on-
to say this right now. I've just seen a face because some wanker is going to make a comment that you misquoted that name, that title of that song there. So I'm going to correct you right now. I've just seen a face.
Okay,
Sorry.
I've just seen a face. I apologize. I've just seen a face. To me, I like that as an opener better than Drive My Car. But for the most part, I like the UK pressings better. And of course, Revolver, there's no comparison. The UK version with their track listing was much better than the US pressing of Revolver. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm so jealous of you in some ways because you got to grow up in the era of the Beatles and Bob Dylan. And when those albums came out, you were alive. You got to experience them when they were first hits. And I agree, the Beatles are fantastic. And of course, they put you in a really great mood. They're just really.
They do. And it's pretty remarkable. And we can go on and on. And I've done it on Beatle themed shows. It's amazing 50 years now, 52 years after the fact, still to some people. Some people don't care, and I get that, but it's remarkable. And I feel, I don't know, privileged is the word, fortunate. The only bad side of it is I'm that much older now because of it. But it was a great time and for me, and a great place for me to grow up and listen to those records then. And I still enjoy them now. So
Yeah, I agree with you. And you got to live in a fantastic area of the United States at a fantastic time for music. And you got to have some wonderful experiences that a lot of other people didn't get to experience. San Francisco, I'm sure, was a fabulous place to be in the 60s and the 70s.
it was everyone's got their thing that worked for them, and they had, we all have these things, and I feel very fortunate. Mainly because we talked about me going to a show last night. I would see so many shows cheap, and almost every major quote legacy artist you'd think of the late 60s, 70s, 80s. I saw just because I was there, and it was for a while in the music business, and it was not expensive. It wasn't these like $400 or $500 tickets now, and beyond in some cases. So, okay, we're going to wind it down now. Don't hang up after this, Melinda, after I stop it for a second, but thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I've been wanting to be on your channel and do something like this for a long time. I'm glad we came up with a really cool topic, and thank you for having me on. I love your channel, so thank you so much.
And likewise, I love yours. There are links below to both our channels. So thanks for watching. List your good vibe records. None of us list Good Vibration by the Beatles, by the Beach Boys. Whoops, Freudian, Beach Boys.
The Beach Boys, to me, I thought that was such a cliche to some degree, but I agree Pet Sounds would have been a beautiful choice, or the Greatest Hits compilation. So
yes, exactly. Okay. See you later, everyone. Mazzy loves you, and we'll see you next time.
bye-bye. Thank you.